And people say the writers aren't accomplishing Lauren's original vision. Who knows, maybe the CMC will get their cutie marks this season. Too much wishful thinking? Must not fangasm. Must not fangasm. Must not!
What happened? What's going on? It's your cutie marks. They're amazing.
Best anniversary ever. Alright, let's get serious, people. Before anyone goes around claiming that I'm some kind of future-predicting wizard simply because of what I stated in my Canterlot Boutique video, let me make one thing perfectly clear. It was a joke. Of course I don't have precognitive abilities. I saw Philly Vanilli, didn't I? For all we know, I could have stopped this shit from happening. Well, anyway, it finally happened. The CMC have obtained their cutie marks in an episode written on the show's 5th anniversary. Not only that, it's another story arc that Lauren asked to be fulfilled for the series. However, it's one thing to actually go through with it, it's an entirely other thing to execute it in a successful way. So, did it work? I'd like to think it did. The CMC are asked by Pipsqueak to help him out in being elected for student president for the school against Diamond Tiara. When Pipsqueak ends up winning, Tiara ends up being shunned by everyone, including Silverspoon. Understandably, of course. Feeling bad for her, the CMC decide to follow her across town where they learn a little bit more about Tiara that they never have before. This motivates them to show Tiara how possible it is to change your ways and become a better pony. Man, does this episode have so much to talk about. In fact, there's so much that it's hard to choose where to start. I guess I could start with how the episode gives us so much to talk about in the span of 20 minutes. We got a school board election, Silverspoon dumping Tiara, character depth for Tiara, the CMC trying to be friends with her, Tiara standing up to her mom, a montage to repair the playground, learning for a fact that the Apple parents are most likely dead, and the CMC getting their marks. All of this in the form of a musical. A problem that people might have with the episode is how all of these plot lines forces it to have fast pacing and not having enough time devoted to each one, which could have easily been done with their own individual episodes. However, with this being a musical episode and all of the events being tied together the way they were, it helps the episode stand as a collection of little events connected to one big payoff. In fact, that's actually the best way to see this episode. A number of small stories all building up to one big thing. And because it's a musical, it allows the pacing of the episode to feel more natural and not as rushed as it may actually be. Kind of like what happened with the Magical Mystery Cure. In fact, this episode is like the Magical Mystery Cure. It's a musical, it delves into the destiny of its main characters, and it breaks one of the status quo set up by the first season while also giving the characters a new story arc to engage in. We even get flashbacks showing the progression of the trio and what they went through to get their rewards. One thing that some fans might have worried about is what would have happened if the CMC actually did get their cutie marks, because once they get them, their story arc would be complete and there wouldn't be much left for them to do. However, this new story arc opens more possibilities for stories centered around the CMC helping others to find their own destiny. In a sense, it works both ways. Fans can be happy that the CMC have gotten their marks, but they can also be intrigued by the potential that this new idea has to offer. We'll just have to see where it goes. Now let's talk about what everyone is talking about, Diamond Tiara. This episode managed to do the impossible and create a scenario where it's possible to sympathize with her. Diamond Tiara, the character who made fun of Scootaloo's disability and stated previously that she doesn't care about others' feelings. How the hell is that possible? Well, I think it's possible because we learn more about her as a person. Tiara was raised from toddlerhood to be a snooty winner by her mom, and because she spent so much time learning from a single teaching technique, she was never able to take experience from another one. And when she finally gets shunned by her own mother, she realizes that all of her effort to take after what she's been taught was all for nothing, and now she's left with nothing. Now she doesn't know what to do anymore and questions if there's another way to fit in. She actually wants to change for the better, but she doesn't know how. It's not anything groundbreaking, but it does give her more character as opposed to just being a straight-up bully. Her song sequence is done very naturally, and it does a great job explaining exactly what she feels, helping the audience to enlist sympathy for her. And that's not even all of it, because we do see what her character can be like when she isn't trying to be a bully. She has moments of weakness and insecurity, sometimes being pressured into things against her approval, but she can learn to stand up for herself. She opens up to those that she previously treated badly and sees value in their company, as well as what motivates them. She thinks she knows what to do because she has her cutie mark, but is still fascinated by the idea of getting to learn more about yourself because you don't have one. She actually feels very unsure of herself at times, which leads to some fairly interesting interactions between Tiara and the CMC.
You three are really lucky. We are? Yeah. You get to explore all these options, learning who you really are before you're stuck with something you don't understand.
Now, some people can and will be turned off by how this episode enlists sympathy for her so much and so quickly that it practically rewrites her character by the end of the episode. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't see that. The thought of Tiara being forgiven so easily after all the bad stuff she did is really hard to buy, especially since this episode is trying to act like none of those things ever happened. Honestly, I do agree that if they wanted to make Tiara's redemption more believable, it had to be more of a progression approach instead of all of it happening at one time. After all, Discord is still working towards being a fully trusted character, and it works because he wasn't fully forgiven in just one sitting. In fact, it leads me into an obvious flaw with the episode, Silver Spoon's role. Now, it's pretty clear that Silver Spoon has been more of a follower of Diamond Tiara, making her easier to sympathize with from the start. However, the entire episode was dedicated to developing Diamond Tiara, while Silver Spoon just gets one quick scene of saying she doesn't want to put up with it anymore. If anything, this episode made Tiara feel more redeemed than Silver Spoon. Isn't she going to go through a story where she opens up to those that she helped hurt? Kinda feels way too forgiving if you ask me. Whoa, got sidetracked for a bit. Anyway, it is true that Diamond Tiara's redemption arc is practically shoehorned in, but the episode does put effort into making her less snobby and even actually wanting a better life for herself by trying to make up for her past transgressions, even spending time with those that she previously scalded. So with all that in mind, I liked how Tiara was handled in this episode. We get to see a new side of her and the potential that she'll become a more likable character in the future. Also, seeing as how the episode is a musical, we gotta talk about the songs. Each of these songs has a unique style to them that's different from each other, visual-wise, rhythm-wise, and music-wise. And while some moments come across as drawn out and fillerish, they still connect together in a bigger grand scale that the episode builds towards. The election song has the advantage of having two different musical styles at once, with the CMC and Tiara having separate orchestrations. The later songs are even better as they contain the most character depth, delving into how they feel while also having a real emotional touch to them. Normally, having too many songs could affect the episode badly, but if Pinkie Pie taught us anything, it's that it can work. And in terms of this episode, it worked out fairly well. One other thing that people have been in debate over is the design of the new cutie marks themselves. While some may not like how similar they are to each other and how it could take away the CMC's individuality, it's actually not what it is. By examining the marks more closely, we can understand their meaning by piecing certain things together. The different symbols represent how the three have individual talents, so their uniqueness is still present. Applebloom can still be a carpenter, Sweetie Belle can still sing, and Scootaloo can still dance. The shields represent how they are connected through the resolution that they learn at the end. While the three are unique in different ways, they're still connected by their desire to help others and how they're going to go about it. I think it's safe to say that no matter what design they went with, a lot of people wouldn't have been fully happy because, well, everyone has had different interpretation of their marks based on their personalities and talents. Well, you know what? I'm just glad that they finally got them after 4.5 seasons of cluelessness. If I could say one other thing about the episode, it's that the celebration of the CMC getting their marks is very over the top. I mean, we've seen all sorts of characters getting their marks throughout the series, and everyone sees it as a natural progression. Hell, the filly in the bowling alley didn't get a whole parade thrown for him when he got his mark, so what makes them so special? Is it because their individual talents were so incredibly obvious and the townsfolk were happy to know that no more episodes would be wasted on them trying to figure out what they were? Well, whatever the reason, it still makes for a good song and it makes for a great last shot of the episode that I wouldn't mind becoming the new opening sequence. Crusaders of the Lost Mark is by far one of the show's biggest episodes ever. Not because of how much it puts into one episode, but because of how much it actually has to talk about. From the potential for future stories and concepts to the characters and their interactions with each other, it's an episode that everyone has been talking about since it first came up. It gives us the long-awaited conclusion of the CMC story arc while also giving them a new one to continue exploring and possibly evolving their characters. In a way, I guess that does make it a better episode than Brotherhood Social. By God, Season 5 is on a roll! Well, until next time, MisAnthro Pony, over and out.
Get ready for the biggest quinceanera celebration!
Oh, Sugar Cube. If Mom and Dad were here, they'd be so proud of you.
Oh, thanks, Applejack.